Have you noticed? Winter hasn't arrived yet, but all of China already feels cold. Restaurants are closing, gold shops are pulling out of malls, banks are selling houses, and even subsidies meant to encourage childbirth are starting to be clawed back. Some say this is just an economic cycle, but more and more people feel it's actually a collective exit. Don't miss the next drop, subscribe and hit the bell. In Luan, Anhui, a mother who had just received a second child subsidy was ordered by the government to return it, on the grounds that the entire province has suspended payments. In Shili, Shenzhen, staff at a Xibei, Western China cuisine, restaurant posted a closure notice, citing lease expiration. And banks are turning themselves into real estate agents, listing large batches of homes for sale on JD.com. These news items look unrelated, but together they fit like a jigsaw puzzle. The splendor of an era is quietly retreating, from the dining table, the checkout counter, the community bulletin board. Live bugs found in Xibei noodles, Chow Tai Fook closing 905 stores in 1 year, childbirth subsidies being clawed back, rural commercial banks listing 20,000 homes. These aren't isolated events, but the real scene of China's economy. Today, we'll start with these 4 stories to unpack the real meaning behind a phrase. It's not that people aren't trying, it's that the entire era is reversing course. Do you remember the pre-cooked food controversy that caused such an uproar? Its recoil is playing out palpably at the well-known chain restaurant Xibei. Since September, netizens have noticed that Xibei locations in various cities have quietly shut down. Suzhou's Fanhua Center, Beijing's Shijingshan, Yiwu in Zhejiang, Liuhe in Nanjing, Shili in Shenzhen, Shantao in Guangdong, all were once high-traffic areas, now posting closure notices with the familiar reasons: store adjustment, lease expiration. Coincidentally, these closures have all clustered after the pre-cooked food storm broke. Let's see what netizens are saying. According to Red Star Capital's tally, from October to now Xibei has closed nearly 10 locations. The official response was brief: a unified arrangement, consistent with information posted at stores. Beyond that, nothing more to disclose. Industry analysis, however, isn't so simple. Analysts point out that Xibei's single-store operating costs are high. They need to serve 300 customers a day just to break even. After the pre-cooked food controversy, foot traffic fell visibly at many locations. Failing to reach that break-even line, they had no choice but to close to stop the bleeding. For a chain valued at over 10 billion yuan with nearly 400 directly operated stores, this is no small matter. It all began back in September. Influencer Luo Yonghao posted a jab accusing Xibei of using pre-cooked dishes, which unexpectedly stirred up a storm. Founder Jiao Guolong chose to go hard, insisting, "We do not have a single pre-cooked dish." He even opened the kitchen to prove innocence. But a few days later, media filmed bagged chicken broth and frozen fish in the back kitchen, an on-site slap in the face, hard evidence. Consumers, already sensitive about transparency in dining, erupted. Especially in an era when families and child-friendly diners place great emphasis on food safety, a complaint about finding a live bug in the noodles made matters worse. In October, a mother in Zhengzhou revealed she took her child to Xibei and found a live bug in the yumian, buckwheat noodles. The image spread across social media and became the last straw that broke the camel's back. Facing a crisis of trust, Xibei launched promotions, adjusted menus, and cut prices. Some stores saw a slight return of customers. But for those most severely hit, or already poorly performing, the effect was limited. A store manager in Chengdu said bluntly, foot traffic fell by 1/3. This trust crisis, triggered by pre-cooked food, isn't just Xibei's problem. It raises a broader question for the catering industry: how should it balance rapid expansion, cost pressure, and food safety? What do you think? For you, are pre-cooked dishes unacceptable assembly line meals, or an understandable form of modern efficiency? Gold prices up, gold shops down. Why are they moving in opposite directions? Beyond restaurants, you might think the gold industry surely isn't suffering a cold winter. Gold prices are rising, so jewelry stores should be making money, right? In fact, a brand you surely know is closing stores. China's largest jeweler, Chow Tai Fook, closed 905 stores this year, on average, 2.5 stores per day. That's not a ripple, it's a real wave of closures. Not just Chow Tai Fook, Chow Tai Sing, Chow Sang Sang, Zhou Lu Fu, Luck Fook, these familiar gold brands are all rapidly contracting. Chow Tai Fook had expanded from 4,452 stores in 2021 to a peak of 7,407. But in fiscal year 2025, it shut 905 stores in one go. That's practically a hard break. Another major brand, Chow Tai Sing, had 560 fewer stores year-over-year by the end of September, 380 of them franchises. In other words, franchisees are exiting quickly. The same story is playing out at Chow Sang Sang, Zhou Lu Fu, and Luck Fook Group. Net reductions range from dozens to hundreds of stores. The entire sector has entered a downsizing mode. But aren't gold prices rising? Why so many closures? Behind this wave are several deeper logics. According to the World Gold Council, demand for gold jewelry has clearly declined since Q4 last year. In contrast, demand for investment gold has surged. Put simply, people are still buying gold, but not rings and necklaces at jewelry shops. They're buying physical bullion to preserve value. That's awkward for jewelry stores. Attention on gold remains, but customers aren't coming to spend with you. High gold prices also create inventory pressures that franchisees can't bear. Stocking up requires large capital outlay. If prices fall, inventory could suffer losses. Franchisees shy away from stocking and risk-taking, and ultimately just exit. Chow Tai Sang's franchise revenue in the first 3 quarters was cut in half, down over 56%. And on November 1st, a new tax policy reduced deductible tax amounts for non-investment gold companies, thus raising costs. Industry estimates say the cost per gram rose by over 60 yuan. Prices jumped immediately. For jewelry stores, this isn't merely a cost increase. When prices are too high, consumers wait, newlyweds choose cheaper styles, those not marrying simply don't buy. Investors buy bars and ETFs, bypassing retail entirely. The gold shop retreat is especially pronounced in 3rd and 4th tier cities. Chow Tai Sang's reports show a net reduction of 441 stores this year in Tier 3 and below cities alone. Industry insiders predict the closure wave hasn't hit bottom. With the new tax policy and more rational consumer behavior, the gold retail sector may face another reshuffle. Thus, the seemingly hot gold price is actually freezing the jewelry industry. It forces us to rethink, in an age of consumption downgrade, is gold still a necessity, or is it being replaced by more functional, investment-oriented forms? Big slogans, but subsidies must be clawed back. If you think the above are just issues of one company or sector, what follows may change your view of the broader economy. Faced with aging demographics, the authorities push policies to encourage marriage, yet young people increasingly choose no marriage, no childbirth, only want to raise a child. Such choices are more common across China. Even as the authorities chant encourage fertility, reports are spreading that many places have halted or even clawed back birth subsidies. Let's start with a netizen in Luan, Anhui. They had applied for a second child subsidy, but suddenly received a call from the Health Commission. All second child subsidies in the province are suspended. Previously issued funds will be deducted from childcare allowances. Applications not yet paid will be intercepted. Online, it's not just Luan. Netizens in Bengbu, Chuzhou, and Huainan report the exact same situation. The subsidy isn't huge, just a few thousand yuan for a family, but it's being pulled back when most needed. Why? Ms. Liu, a newly retired civil servant in Zhengzhou, Hunan, put it bluntly, local finances are tight, the government simply can't come up with the money. She said even sanitation workers' wages have been delayed for months, and some district governments have to borrow money to pay salaries. In such circumstances, so-called birth rewards are just slogan politics. No matter how loudly they're shouted, they won't land. Netizens in Shandong and Guangdong also say the promised second child subsidies never materialized, just empty checks. Central policy, but locals can't implement? In July this year, the CPC Central Committee issued the Childcare Subsidy System Implementation Plan, saying that from January 1st, children aged 0 to 3 are eligible for 3,600 yuan per person per year, whether first dash, second dash, or third born. But the problem is, the policy is out. Where does the money come from? Tsinghua sociologist Li Jiao points to an old problem: the center has policies, but local governments lack funds to enforce them. Localities, to align with the center, express support, but with tight finances, they can't implement, so they cut the policy across the board, even clawing back subsidies already paid. The result? The policy's effectiveness is heavily discounted, and public trust erodes. Marriage gets performance targets. It's not just childbirth, even marriage now has targets to hit. Official CPC data say more than 5 million couples registered to marry in the first 3 quarters, 400,000 more than last year. At first glance, that looks like good news. But what's the reality? A Sichuan civil affairs official, Ms. Chen, revealed these numbers are the result of localities scrambling to meet marriage targets from higher-ups. She said the order was monthly marriage registrations must increase by 20%. So what do localities do? Divorced couples are pushed to remarry, single elderly are arranged to wed, marriage registration counters are set up in nightclubs, rural markets hand out eggs, cups, and dish soap in exchange for marriage certificates. A netizen from Anhui, Ms. Yao, said, "The village loudspeakers blare every day, get your marriage certificate and receive eggs. It's as lively as a street fair. No marriage, no childbirth, yet a rise in adoptions." Ironically, while more young people don't want to marry or bear children, they're lining up to adopt. Ms. Wang from a Sichuan children's welfare home says demand for adopting healthy orphans has surged in recent years. As long as the child is healthy, as soon as one comes in, one is adopted. Many people aren't married but volunteer in order to get in line to adopt. Why? Because for more and more people, the marriage and childbirth system feels too heavy and burdensome, but the desire to raise children remains. From subsidy defaults, to marriage quotas, to choosing adoption over marriage and childbirth, these phenomena reflect a deeper issue. As sociologist Lu Yuan puts it, you can't reverse long-term trends with top-down orders and short-term incentives. So the question is, beyond making the numbers look better, what else do these measures achieve? Why are banks suddenly selling so many houses? Birth subsidies are promised but can't be paid. What other areas are singing loud slogans but facing harsh reality? Let's see what banks are doing. Do you know who's selling the most homes now? Not developers or speculators, but banks. This year, many Chinese banks have simultaneously begun bulk selling homes, listing thousands at a time even on JD.com and Alibaba's asset platforms, with clearly marked prices, clearing inventory directly. Behind this lies another warning sign about China's housing market, credit, and economic structure. In October, a piece of news shocked many. Lanzhou Rural Commercial Bank listed nearly 200 properties at once on JD's asset platform, with prices ranging from tens of thousands to several billion yuan, including residences, apartments, shops, and office buildings, all assets under the bank's name. All title issues had been cleared, available for direct transfer. This is not an isolated case. Open JD Assets or Alibaba Asset Platform and you'll see Lanzhou Bank, Agricultural Bank of China, Jilin Bank, Tianjin Bank, Zhongyuan Bank, Wenzhou Bank, Dalian Bank, Harbin Bank, all listing properties in bulk. Some have over 2,000 units, even the smaller ones list more than 600. Local rural credit cooperatives and rural commercial banks are listing staggering numbers. Sichuan Rural Credit close to 20,000 units, Guangdong Rural Credit over 12,000, Liaoning, Guizhou, Jilin, and Fujian Rural Credit collectively in the tens of thousands. Why have banks become real estate agents? Where did these homes come from? How did they become bank assets? Most are the products of bad debt liquidation. A banking insider revealed that these directly sold properties are basically collateral, from corporate loans, small business loans, and even ordinary home mortgages. When borrowers can't repay, the bank legally seizes the collateral, completes title transfer, and then lists it as self-held assets to sell and recover cash. In the past, banks handled bad assets mainly two ways: packaging and selling the debt to asset management companies at a big discount, or judicial auctions via the courts, which take time and recover slowly. Now, banks are stepping in to sell the homes themselves. This can raise recovery efficiency, prices may be higher than court auctions, and banks keep control of the process. It also shows one thing: the pace of bad debt outbreaks leaves banks unable to wait for the court's slow process. Why so cheap? You might ask, are bank-sold homes cheaper? Answer, often yes, but not necessarily easy to sell. Take the Yucai Yiping community in Liaoning. Among 156 units, some had starting prices under 80,000 yuan. So why aren't they snapped up? Because many of these homes are concentrated in third and fourth tier cities or remote areas with poor liquidity. Also, many buyers are unfamiliar with bank-owned properties, worry about title history or disputes, and once the first listing fails, the second will be cut further, creating negative expectations that depress sales. This cycle of can't sell, price cuts insufficient, confidence lacking reflects the underlying weakness of the market. What's behind the banks selling homes? The current surge of bank home sales, what does it reflect? How can one respond to collateralization and help homeowners? Let's look at the perspective of a young person online. His view, with a dose of empathy, may be illuminating.